Thanks again to the Keeter Center and the College of the Ozarks for providing a nice venue for us to have our meeting here this afternoon. So again, welcome. And with that, I'll turn the podium over to our director, Jason.
Thing kind of sticks out there, doesn't it? All right, well, good afternoon. It's been an enjoyable day and a half here or so. I'd like to first acknowledge all the regional staff that showed up today. Appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate the tour that we took yesterday of the new Shepherd Hills Education Center. It's a discussion of things that are going on in Shepherd Hills. So lots of great things going on in Southwest Missouri. It was a great pleasure to get out with a couple of commissioners on Team Combo yesterday and do a little rod and reel sampling. The quality trout fishing opportunities exist there, so it was a great day. Really sincerely happy to be here and appreciate the location we're at here at College of the Ozarks. All right, get started. We've kicked off the 2024 DCT Fall Tours. Andrew and I had the opportunity to visit with staff in Northwest Missouri a couple of weeks ago. It was a great chance to get out with district coordination teams. Looking forward to future trips with coordination teams across the state to really learn about the conservation efforts that they're putting on the ground. Our trip to Northwest really highlighted the collaboration that staff had with private landowners in the community, and it's just always a great time to spend with staff learning about the things that they're working on and the challenges that they face. So we'll look forward to many additional tours in the weeks to come. We also kicked off the 6th cohort of NBC Leads. It's an impressive group of 24 leaders who represent 10 different branches across the agency. And our first K-9 member of NBC Leads, K-9 Whalen, was part of the cohort. Obviously a crowd pleaser. I think he got more pets and recognition than anybody else. NBC Leads is a 10-month program designed to develop future leaders for the department. The sessions are geared around leadership development, specific processes for the department, and using conservation efforts selected by administration for participants to work on to complete their capstone assignments. And they'll present those ideas to the department for consideration of future policy changes. And so again, excited about this next NBC Leads group. Speaking of leadership, we continue to have staff participate in Missouri Leadership Academy. Congratulations to Colt Johnson from Regional Resource Management. He's our planning coordinator as a recent graduate from the 12th class of Missouri Leadership Academy. So we've had folks, I think, in every one of those classes. The Academy is an innovative program that brings together emerging leaders from across all executive departments to build new skills and become better leaders. Again, excited to support Colt in this effort. I will say that Colt's capstone group worked on role clarity, something that we in the agency have been spending a lot of time doing, and was proud to see Colt stand up there and be the team leader to really present some of the work that he's been doing to the cabinet. So again, congratulations to Colt on those efforts. As many of you will certainly recognize, the cooler weather brings on excitement about the most wonderful time of the year, which is fall. I think myself, like many others in the room, certainly live for this time of year. So fall hunting seasons are upon us. A number of folks have already begun participating in the dove season, which opened on September 1st. Our archery season for deer and turkeys will start on September 15th. The black bear hunting season will be October 21 through 30. And our elk hunting season, which Aaron Hilton will talk a little more about later, will be October 19th through 27th and December 14th through the 22nd, and then ample waterfowl hunting opportunities coming up very soon as well. Speaking of fall hunting, we'll be participating in a new fall permit campaign. Really, kind of regardless of where you live and what game you hunt, all individuals and groups who consider themselves stewards of our hunting heritage have a common binding idea, and this is really the foundation of this hunting campaign. This is the goal of the Hunt for the Good campaign, the Council for the Advancement of Hunting and Shooting Sports has partnered with the National Wild Turkey Federation to design and develop this campaign. Their collaborations in this is the result of decades of leadership in the world of hunting and conservation and a shared vision to introduce more hunters and shooters to a cherished American pastime with far-reaching benefits. NBC is certainly a proponent of this vision and will be conducting a social media campaign this fall using the theme and creative from Hunt for the Good through the themes such as Hunt for the Connection to Hunt for the Tails. We hope to inspire a new generation of hunters along with a mass of Missourians who understand and support the benefits of hunting. So you'll notice that this campaign is one that really connects with hunters or with the public in a very different way. Some quick habitat highlights. The latest installment of our staff's habitat highlights will focus on really aquatic systems work. Recently, though relatively small in stature, some floating wetlands made a big splash in Springfield, Missouri media. The department is collaborating with the city utilities of Springfield and other partners to launch floating wetlands onto several drinking water lakes in and near Springfield. NBC staff, under the excellent leadership and guidance of Kara Tweed and Frank Nelson, have researched, planned, instructed, and employed these and other prototype floating wetlands. The primary function of the wetlands is awareness and education of the importance of aquatic plants and wetland systems and lakes and the contributions of these resources to environmental, ecological, and human health. Floating structures do provide habitat for fish and wildlife, as shown in the photos here. We've been capturing a number of critters using those floating wetlands, but they're also designed to help improve water quality as they remove nutrients from those systems. In the Hoosiok Shoal Creek Woodlands Priority Geography, NBC staff have been working with the Nature Conservancy, U.S. Forest Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service at Bricky Bridge Stream Crossing in Hoosiok Creek. The original crossing was a barrier to the passage of fish and other aquatic animals. The fishing crossing was replaced with a bridge that is pictured in the photo on the left. Pictured on the right, immediately upstream, the team worked to stabilize the bank, this formerly eroding stream bank on private land. Looking ahead, the streamside forest will be restored on a portion of the adjacent floodplain this fall. The U.S. Forest Service did the bridge design work and contributed funding. The Fish and Wildlife Service contributed funds. TNC contributed technical assistance and funds pre-planning and channel stabilization immediately upstream. NBC contributed materials for stream stabilization immediately upstream and will contribute seedlings for the riparian forest reforestation upstream. From an ecological perspective, removing barriers to the passage of aquatic animals can boost aquatic wildlife populations, allowing for seasonal movement of spawning, and increasing the local range of different species. Additionally, the new span bridge will allow for more natural sediment transport and improved depths and velocity in the affected reach of the river. From a human perspective, travelers have much safer river crossing and flooding crosses the river much less often. Additionally, stream bank stabilization and stream site reforestation have dozens of benefits for the hundreds of different organisms at the site, as well as downstream, including providing habitat, reducing erosion and sedimentation, improving water quality, improving density of prey species in the stream, and improved perception of stream side landowners by floaters and anglers who use the stretching river. Staff have also been hard at work on completing another successful year at the fair. New to the fair were several items. Private Land Services booth in NBC Pavilion. As many of you will recall, we previously had the private lands booth in the Ag building, consolidated that work. Certainly lots of excitement around celebrating Smokey the Bear's 80th birthday. I'll show a few more pictures related to that. The Explore Zone, pop-up conservation booths, and wild jobs and relevancy. Our staff were very diligent in trying to recruit folks. I snuck in on Friday in plain clothes, and staff were trying to wave me over and say, "Hey, would you like to work for the department?" And I said, "Yes, I very much hope at some point in time to be able to do that." New demos also include the hatchery truck display. So Commissioner Wagner, Commissioner Eckelkamp, and I were there to see the new wrap on the hatchery Looks really cool. You saw the truck at Shepherd Hills as well. Again, excited to visit with Commissioner Uppercamp and Commissioner Wagner at the Governor's Ham Breakfast. And then sincerely, thanks to the many NBC staff that spent a lot of time at the fair this year. Speaking of Smokey's 80th birthday, since 1944, Smokey Barrett has taught millions of Americans about their role in preventing wildfires. U.S. Forest Service has been helping the state celebrate Smokey's milestone 80th birthday, and Missouri has stepped up as well. Smokey has been going statewide, visiting fairs, doing TV interviews. Circulation has been at the state fair. The culmination has been at the Missouri State Fair. I was there with Caleb and some friends and saw the kids get to sing Happy Birthday to Smokey Bear. They were making T-shirts that they colored, did print on press on the front of them. So kids were walking all over the fairgrounds with Smokey Bear T-shirts. So staff made over 900 T-shirts that proudly displayed Smokey Bear's face. And they also gave out little flag banners that folks had put in their yards. I was driving around Ashland the other day and saw a couple of those on display. So folks are putting them out. A few research highlights. And really, this is more on partnerships. This time from Science Branch, NBC staff have been partnering with the University of Missouri and the Nature Conservancy to install and study the impacts of beaver dam analogs in streams throughout North Missouri prairies. These structures are low-tech, natural solutions for restoring stream banks, floodplains, and wetland connections to enhance ecosystem function and our degraded headwater prairie streams. Habitat improvements from these beaver dam analogs could also promote diverse communities of stream and wetland flora and fauna, including the Topeka Shiner. NBC, NU, and TNC are studying these beaver dam analogs on Dunn Ranch and Pawnee Prairie. They're being installed this fall and winter. Project evaluations will evaluate the effects of stream channel, in-stream habitat, floodplain connection, aquatic and wetland species diversity, fish passage, and Topeka Shiner populations. The results will help managers understand the use of these beaver dam analogs in hopes of maintaining healthy aquatic and wetland habitats and diverse species communities within these headwater prairie streams. Again, on the theme of partnership work, approximately a third of Missouri was once dominated by 15 million acres of prairie. Due to conversion to other uses, there's approximately 47,000 acres of remnant prairie remaining in the state. Of those remnant prairies that remain, approximately 25,000 acres are either held in public trust or by conservation NGOs focused on protection and management of those tracts. Many species of wildlife, including grassland bird species, as well as the insects such as fritillary butterflies, rely on these grassland landscapes. Bird populations throughout the U.S. have declined dramatically, with grassland species seeing the greatest declines, estimated at 50%. Species that rely on these grassland landscapes cannot survive without a patchwork of small remnant prairies that are many miles apart. There has to be connectivity between prairie remnants to support the many species that rely on these native grassland communities. As the focus of the Department's Grassland Initiative, reconnecting grassland landscapes. This effort is multifaceted and wouldn't be possible without our partners. The Missouri Prairie Foundation and the Nature Conservancy are two key partners that own and manage tracts of remnant prairie. There are numerous partners that are working collectively to spread the word about the importance of native warm-seeding grasses, including the Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS, Quail Forever, Ducks Unlimited, Soil and Water Conservation Districts, the Missouri Forage and Grassland Council, MU Extension, the Center for Regenerative Agriculture, MFA, and Missouri Counties Association. Native seed is provided for prairie reconstructions by members of the Missouri Native Seed Association. Cost share funding is provided by the department as well as NRCS, Soil and Water Conservation Districts, Raceline Alternative Energies, and the National Bobwhite and Grassland Initiative, among others. Individually, any of these organizations would have marginal success success at best, but collectively, however, we can make a difference at restoring grassland landscapes. Continuing the emphasis on partnership work, I had the privilege to join what was literally hundreds of folks and had several close friends to celebrate the opening of the Boone County Nature School. Excitement was infectious as the community turned out to interact with NBC staff, educators to see the new center and the many amenities it offers. I got the chance to take Caleb again, and when we were arriving, he asked me if he would get to go to the Boone County Nature School at some point. I said, I sure hope so, because he's a fourth grader now in southern Boone, and this is intended to be available to all fifth graders in the Boone County area. Thanks so much to our partners who made the vision possible. Looking forward to seeing students learn more about nature. The first students have already been hit the building last week, and in fact, we're going to have a group of pediatricians at the building tomorrow with one of our One Health engagements of the Missouri Association of Pediatrics. So it's getting a lot of really good news. On the feral hog front, operations continue to be successful for Feral Hog Elimination Partnership. You can see the numbers of impacted counties and the watersheds continue to decline. Perhaps the most encouraging statistic is the staff catch per unit effort graph over the past 8 years. Helps us measure the population abundance of hogs on the landscape. This downward trend is certainly a welcome sight. The partnership continues to operate at a high level of coordination. Appreciate again many NBC staff who are working on this effort, and to our excellent partners. Again, speaking of partners, NBC staff are once again gearing up to host the Animal Partners Roundtable this year in Columbia at the Hildegard Inn on October 29 and 30. The 2024 theme focuses on embracing integrated conservation, which incorporates both natural resources and people's values, while recognizing that integration is vital to long-term conservation success. This year, Tony Watsley from the Wildlife Management Institute will serve as our keynote speaker and be joined by 3 other plenary panelists to round out the first day of events on October 29. Dr. Carl Malcolm of the U.S. Forest Service, Dr. Maya Moody of the Missouri Chapter of American Academy of Pediatrics, who I mentioned will be leading the event tomorrow at the Boone County Nature School, and then Tovar Cerulli, who is the author of The Mindful Carnivore, will be our plenary panel. So excited about that opportunity to again be with our partners. Aaron, who's in the audience, will recognize a couple of these pictures. So again, speaking of partners, and before our NBC history notes, I want to note a cool event that took place on Peck Ranch Conservation Area on June 1st. A group of volunteers from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation joined NBC elkologist Aaron Hildreth to remove the holding pens which were used in the original elk restoration efforts over a decade ago. Speaking as someone who was there for the first elk to kick them out of the trailer and bring them home to Missouri, it certainly signifies a significant moment in Missouri's history of our elk population. It's an honor to lead an organization that's responsible for these moments, but we can't do this without our many partners. So thank you all for those efforts. Closing out with our NBC history notes, September 18, 1958, the Commission purchased 3,208 acres that eventually becomes Shell Osage Conservation Area. September 24th, 1952, the Commission approves Peck Ranch's management for planting of turkeys. September 16th, 1947, our Special Investigations Group was formed in Protection Branch. September 26th, 1938, the Commission closes the deer season and the turkey season due to low populations. Come a long way on many fronts. So with that, Commissioners, that concludes my update. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions for Jason? Good job, Jason. Okay, Kendra is walking to the podium. Kendra Wilhouse is Assistant to the Director for Operational Excellence, and she's going to present an update on our strategic plan. Kendra.
All right, thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to share some strategic plan updates with you. So last summer at the July Commission workshop, the director and deputies introduced a revised framework for the department's comprehensive plan that would encompass the structure for both strategic and operational plans. At that time, we shared the strategic priorities and initiatives for FY25 and gained your approval to move forward with those initiatives. So today, I would like to share with you a few updates. First, I'd like to appreciate that the strategic planning process has occurred throughout the agency's history. It's taken various forms and timelines, anywhere from the design 20-year outlook to the design for future 5-year plan, and now we've moved to a rolling 12-month plan. Last year, we introduced a revised comprehensive planning cycle and framework that ensures the Commission has an opportunity to provide input and support on an annual cycle on the department's strategic direction and particularly the strategic initiatives. As we've moved to the programmatic priority-based budgeting, aligning our planning efforts from budget to work plans, this annual planning process cycle becomes a critical process for our success. So with the comprehensive framework, it's important to note that we have to ensure that we have sound systems and processes that support this framework. And so we continue as an agency to focus in the areas of programmatic governance that uses role clarity and collaboration to establish program direction, measurable objectives to guide work planning and budgets, prioritization of measurable objectives at the Level 2 program and across the respective goals, structured processes for strategic initiative owners and sponsors that include role clarity, tools, templates, and regular check-ins with the respective deputy, ensuring strategic initiatives are defined, scoped, resourced, and aligned, and prioritizing budgets at the programmatic level. So this slide depicts the comprehensive plan framework that really shows the transition from strategic to operations. And this is the same framework that was introduced to the Commission last year. Starting with the mission, vision, and values at the top, the goals and outcomes, then with associated strategic measures that will support the mission, vision, and values. Below that, we have strategic priorities and initiatives where significant focus is needed in the near future to move the needle on these strategic measures. And then below, we have the program delivery, which is where the day-to-day work occurs to manage operations and deliver conservation. Results are measured through program objectives. So this is a slide just for a quick refresher on the annual strategic and operational planning cycle. The right side of the cycle is really kind of where we're living at currently. By design, earlier this spring, administration reviewed the strategic plan, and today we are here to share some of those discussions that occurred during the review process. Leaders have been reviewing and prioritizing the strategic initiative and program objectives, and regions have started the work planning process. The objectives and work plans will then help to inform the internal expenditure plan that the Commission will eventually approve, and from that, individual objectives are developed, and that should lead us into a cycle of regular review of objectives and work plans. So here's the one-pager, and as you can see, we are still very focused on our 3 goals: take care of nature, connect people with nature, and maintain public trust, as well as our outcomes. So in the next 3 slides, I will briefly share with you the updates to the plan. So I'd like to note that shortly after the Commission approved the strategic initiatives for FY25, the teams went right to work. Through the process of forming teams, developing charters, drafting objectives, and project plans, it became evident that scoping and scaling of the initiatives needed to occur. The teams have spent considerable time discussing what makes the initiative strategic versus just normal operations, and what actions need to be taken to really move the needle on the initiative. That process resulted in a shift of focus for some of the initiatives. And in your advanced materials, you should have received a brief 2-sentence summary for each of the strategic initiatives. So now to address the updates for Goal 1. One of the changes is the shift from the CCS, the Comprehensive Conservation Strategy Framework, to the Landscape Assessment and Monitoring Initiative. Certainly in its time, the CCS was a strategic initiative and is really now in the operational phase, where we see program objectives and plans focused on accomplishing work through the tiered approach and priority geographies. With the framework in place, the team has shifted to focus on the development of assessment and monitoring tools that will help us evaluate the conservation successes across the priority geographies so we can better understand how management actions influence future conditions. This will be accomplished by implementing a baseline landscape health index. The need for this more focused, narrow work resulted in the landscape assessment and monitoring strategic initiative. A second update is really just a name change from species of greatest conservation need to wildlife diversity. And this team will put processes in place to identify and prioritize species recovery goals across taxa groups and align these goals with related comprehensive conservation strategies and habitat system strategic initiatives. And the third update for this goal is the transition of feral hogs off of the strategic initiative list and moving it to the program delivery phase while maintaining it as an operational priority. These updates will take into effect immediately in the 2025 period. Okay, so for Goal 2, here are the strategic initiatives for Goal 2. And so again, for many of these initiatives, and similar to Goal 1 initiatives, they've really been scoped and scaled to be more focused, which is reflected in those sentence summaries that you have in your materials. So for example, the community conservation framework had been developed, and the focus in the initiative really has transitioned from the framework to actual relationship building. Also, like, for example, recruitment, retention, reactivation of hunters and anglers is really focused in on mentorship as an example. The other significant update for Goal 2 is really to note the infrastructure renewal strategic initiative will be delayed. This delay will allow time to fill pivotal vacancies for the strategic initiative, provide additional time for interrelated strategic initiatives and teams to get off the ground so that appropriate resource time can be allocated to the initiative, particularly due to the complexity and the cost bridge impact that this initiative has, as well as to ensure that current construction projects have significant resource time, undistracted, and allocated to meet the requirements. And I think it's also good just to note that even with the multitude of construction projects that's going on currently right now, and just even the learnings that the team has from using the alternative delivery methods and how they actually do project delivery, I think will also help to really strengthen the initiative going forward when it's time.
So Kendra, I just have a question on that. So if I understand these, like on this one, there again on Goal 2 you were on just a minute ago, go back up a second. Connect the diversity of people with nature. That's a strategic goal that has not changed, is that correct?
Yes, strategic priority that has not changed.
Right. And then the 4 items underneath it, there is some adjustments to those?
So really probably the primary adjustments are just a more narrowing of scope. So like the community conservation, which was really centered on the framework development. So we accomplished that. So now it's really about relationship building and focusing in on that. Same way with even the R3, right? Like it could be a very big undertaking. And so with us trying to really size and scope and scale these initiatives, they are really focused on using mentorship to help move the needle. So really it's not a change so much as it is a narrowing of the focus.
It's an initiative though, is that how you
Yes.
define that?
Yes.
And then you mentioned the renewing the infrastructure portfolio, and that's a process that kind of you're stepping back a little bit to kind of regroup on that to get it where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then really honestly on Goal 3, there are no significant changes or updates to this goal. These 4 initiatives continue to be on track with the original intent and scoping that we brought forward in FY25. And that concludes my things. Any questions?
Good presentation. Questions from commissioners? Okay. Thanks, Kendra.
Love Kendra. Great to see the progress.
Yeah. Thank you, Kendra. Okay, next item. Do any commissioners have anything they want to bring forward from the consent agenda, discussed individually? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, Regulations Committee report. That would be Laura, Deputy Director and Chair of the Regulation Committee. Laura.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, and Director Summers. You will recall that in May, the Commission voted to approve recommendations for regulation changes that would modify permit fees to reflect our current cost adjustment based on changes in the Consumer Price Index. Following the Commission's initial consideration, those proposed rulemakings were filed with the Secretary of State's office and published in the Missouri Register, which initiated a 30-day public comment period. From July 2nd through August 1st, the Department received 87 comments, with 27 individuals selecting support for the proposed changes and 60 selecting opposition to the proposed changes. However, the specific comments from 10 individuals who selected opposition were that the non-resident price increases were not significant enough and should be raised by a wider margin. One staff comment was received regarding 3 CSR 10-5.52, non-resident firearms antlerless deer hunting permit, stating that the original purpose statement for this rule is no longer accurate, as it references a first bonus deer hunting permit instead of the current terminology of antlerless deer hunting permit. We recommend updating the purpose statement for this rule. A summary of all comments received, along with the staff responses, is included on final orders of rulemaking provided in your Commission packet. This presentation of orders of rulemaking as formal Commission action items signifies the final step in the Department's regulations process. The Commission has the authority to adopt as originally written, amend, or withdraw the proposed regulations. Madam Chair and Mr. Vice Chair, I request approval of these 18 final orders of rulemaking with one change to the original recommendation for 10-522 to update the purpose statement.
Do you have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Seconded. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Commissioners, the Regulations Committee met on July 25th, 2024 for mid-year code review of the Wildlife Code. 10 recommendations for code changes were received by the committee and are brought forward today. A copy of each rulemaking is included in your packet. If approved today, the proposed rulemakings will be submitted to the Secretary of State for a 30-day public comment period. Comments received on specific proposals will be compiled and presented as part of final orders of rulemaking for Commission consideration at your meeting in December. If approved as final orders of rulemaking, the anticipated effective date of these rulemakings will be February 28, 2025. The first two recommendations are proposed changes to 3 CSR 10-12.110, use of boats and motors, which adds Raymore Recreation Park Pond to areas where only boats without motors may be used, and 3 CSR 10-12.130, fishing general contingent seasons, which removes Missouri Western State University South Pond from areas where fishing is permitted only by reservation by educational groups. The City of Raymore is a partner in the Community Assistance Program and does not desire to allow boats with motors on Raymore Recreation Park Pond, and Missouri Western State University is no longer participating in the Community Assistance Program. Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, I request approval of these two proposed amendments as described.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. The next three recommendations are related to the opening of Rock Lake Conservation Area in Kirksville and the removal of Columbia Bottom Conservation Area as an intensively managed wetland. Changes include adding the new Rock Lake Conservation Area to the list of department areas that are open during posted hours and to the list of areas that prohibit hunting with the exception of managed hunts for deer and turkey. Removing Columbia Bottom Conservation Area from designated closings as waterfowl refuge area, from areas prohibiting waterfowl hunting after 1 p.m., areas closed to waterfowl hunting on December 25th, and adding Columbia Bottom Conservation Area to areas requiring self-registration. Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, I request approval of 3 CSR 10-11.115 closings, 10-11.180 hunting, general provisions and seasons, and 10-11.186 waterfowl hunting as described.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next set of 3 recommendations are the result of comments from a constituent who brought to the Regulation Committee's attention that several locations in the Wildlife Code where the town of Cedar Grove, written as 2 words, should be written as 1 word. Staff researching this request discovered local naming nomenclature between the 2 spellings could cause further confusion. These recommendations are clarifications of a specific location on the current river with a restricted fishing zone, methods and limit restrictions for trout, and special limit restrictions for hogsuckers. Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, I request approval of these 3 proposed rulemakings as described and as detailed in your packet.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
Motion. So moved.
That's your second, right? Okay. All right, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. The last 2 recommendations for mid-year code review are proposed changes to 3 CSR 10-9.565, licensed hunting preserve privileges, and 10-11.205, fishing methods and hours. The first is a slight change to the verbiage of the administrator for the approved chronic wasting disease certification program requirement. The Missouri Department of Agriculture is promulgating a Missouri-specific program to serve Missouri-specific needs, and this proposal is recommended in support of their program change. The second opens fishing to the public on Caldwell Memorial Wildlife Area to catch and release only. Historically, Caldwell Memorial has restricted fishing to educational groups only. The St. Louis region desires to open the area for all to fish due to recent requests from the public. The catch and release regulation will allow managers to maintain the current fishery to provide high success rates to educational groups without the opportunity of overharvest from the public, increasing access and opportunity while still providing a quality educational experience. Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, I request approval of these 2 proposed amendments as described.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
I did have a question.
Please go ahead.
When I was reading this tomorrow and 218, I guess it's a little bit confusing. It says here, the source of all their service must be a bird that is enrolled in the United States Department of Agriculture approved, state of Missouri administered chronic wasting disease, but then it refers to the Department of Agriculture approved. You know, who's going to be making the determination on the CWD monitoring program? Because it gets confusing for those that do.
Correct. So all this does is adjust the language so that captive certified owners can utilize either the USDA chronic wasting disease program or the Missouri Department of Agriculture program. And so we currently have within the regulations the USDA program specifically written, and so it would preclude anyone from participating in the Missouri Department of Agriculture program. Technically speaking, the USDA program is a state-administered program, so this language would essentially allow someone to choose either of those 2 programs.
So, I guess where I found it a little bit confusing if I was reading it, it says state of Missouri. So is it,
Commissioner Harris, you have your microphone.
I'm sorry, is it a state of Missouri Department of Agriculture administered or Department of Conservation?
Correct, it is a state of Missouri Department of Agriculture administered program. And so right now, the Department of Agriculture administers the USDA program, and so that is considered a state-administered program through the Department of Agriculture, but they are in the process of developing their own state-specific program, and so the Department of Agriculture would administer that.
I guess, I'm just looking at it as someone else reading this, because the state of Missouri administered, there's always been a back and forth on who's in control of that program, and we've really been controlling a lot of it, but it's going to get confusing if we don't spell out either MDC or Department of Ag, or maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, so in this instance, that particular program is a Department of Agriculture administered program, and so the way that that specific component of the code is written, I think it would be in alignment with how we have had it previously with the USDA program. So I don't think that's something that the code language itself, there will be any confusion over in who officially administers the program, but we would certainly be reaching out to the captive cervid industry through the Department of Agriculture with them administering that program to clarify who is overseeing that.
Just so I understand, so you would recognize that the Department of Ag would be administering that program, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, that's what I'm for clarification on. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Any other discussion on that item? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Commissioners, at this time, I'd like to invite cervid biologist Aaron Hildreth to present the last set of action items involving antlerless elk regulation recommendations. Aaron has worked for the department for 8 years in the position of cervid biologist. He received his Bachelor of Science in Fisheries and Wildlife from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and his Master of Science from the University of Kentucky, where he studied the physiological effects of the reintroduction process for the elk that were translocated to Missouri and Virginia in 2012 and 2013. He's worked for the Idaho Department of Fish and Game as a regional population biologist and for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in partnership with the National Wildlife Research Center, researching various ungulate damage mitigation techniques and ungulate diseases. Aaron, the podium's yours.
Welcome, Aaron.
It is, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Director Sanders, it is an absolute pleasure to be here today to talk about it. So, we'll dive right on in. Thank you. All right, so we're going to briefly touch on and provide a population update where we sit, talk about the first 4 elk hunting seasons in Missouri we've had so far, briefly touch on the one that will be upcoming this fall, and then dive into some antlerless framework recommendations that we're wishing to propose. So, if we look at a population update, I realize the slide says June of 2024. We do this based on the elk biological year. As of June of 2024, before calving began, we estimated a population of around 320 individuals. Again, calves have been born since then. We'll do our fall cow-calf surveys coming up the first 2 weeks in October, and then we'll do aerial survey we have scheduled for December, and then with that we'll be able to run and get a new population update that we'll predict forward to June of 2025. If we look at, we're going to take a look at 2 different population models. So one is our accounting style model. This is primarily based on our survival and reproductive data. If we look at this, and keep in mind we have a target population goal of 500 individuals, you can see from this model that we have a population that is rapidly cruising towards that 500 goal. If we look here though at our helicopter or our siteability model data, you see that over the 3 years before last year, that model was showing a stable population, and then in the most recent survey we saw quite an uptick. The reality is our population is probably doing somewhere between the first model slide and the second one, where the population is most certainly growing, but it's likely just growing at a slow, steady rate. We'll look at regulation, or the regulated hunting that we've had here in the state over the course of the previous 4 years. We've had, again, 4 hunting seasons. Each of those hunting seasons, we've had 5 bull or antler tags that have been allocated. Over the course of that, 80% of those permits have been filled. The first 2 years, all 5 hunters harvested an animal. In the most recent 2 years, 3 of the 5 in each of those 2 years harvested. We do not believe that the slight reduction in harvest in the past 2 years is reflective of a decreasing trend in the population or bull numbers. The reality is different hunters have different goals and priorities and put forth different amounts of effort, and that's just reflected in changes in harvest years. For this upcoming hunting season, which, as Director Sanders noted, the archery portion will start in October. We have 5 permits that have been awarded. Those 5 hunters are pretty excited to get the opportunity to go into the Ozarks in Missouri and pursue bull elk here. Now, onto the fun stuff. Antlerless elk. So, We have a desire, we hear from the public constantly, we want simple regulations. Well, our bull framework has worked very, very well. So as we were looking at what we would possibly propose for an antlerless opportunity, we wanted to keep things as simple as possible. Given the bull system has worked very well, let's try to mimic as many things of that as we can. So some examples, the number of times that you could apply for the same permit types, the number of times you could apply for a bull tag or an antler tag, keep that limited to 1. Permit fee, application fee, keep those the same, regardless of which permit. Season date formula. It's a season date formula that works very well. We provide an early archery opportunity and a later firearm opportunity. Hunters are able to be well distributed on the landscape. The number of other seasons that are open at that time is fairly minimal. There's minimal competition in the woods. Everybody's able to get out and enjoy it with minimal conflict. Methods of take, keep that the same. Also, landowner allocation of permits. So with the antler elk tags, we allocate at least 10% of the permits must be awarded to a landowner, a qualifying landowner from Carter, Reynolds, or Shannon counties. We would propose that on the antlerless side of things, we keep that the same. Kind of sideboards, because we potentially have 2 different permit types, and these are going to be highly desirable, but very hard to draw. We want to make sure that an individual would not be allowed to have more than 1 permit in a given year, and also kind of the definition for antlerless elk. Antlered elk is defined as an animal having 1 antler 6 inches or greater in length. Antlerless elk would just be having antlers that are no more than 6 inches, or 6 inches, less than 6 inches in length. We always like to make sure that we're getting public feedback on any regulation recommendations that we're looking to put forward. So antlerless elk was no different. We wanted to survey 2 different groups. 1, we have a dedicated group of applicants that keep applying for the antlered elk permits. Let's get their feedback. We know that they're an interested group. Clearly, they want the opportunity to pursue elk here in the state. We also wanted to make sure that if we are missing input from others that have different perspectives potentially, that we also gather that. And so we surveyed roughly 12,000 previous antlered elk applicants that we had emails for. We had a survey response rate of just over 30%, which for an email survey is phenomenal. That's a really, really good response rate. We also provided an online opportunity through our website for the public. With that, we obviously saw fewer responses, but we wanted to provide that opportunity to get that feedback as well. If we look at the survey responses, first question is simply, do you have concerns about us providing a potential regulated antlerless opportunity? Overwhelmingly, the response was no, we don't have a concern. For those that did have a concern, the 2 most common comments were the desire for a larger herd, or it's just too soon after the reintroduction. One of the questions that we asked about was the application and the number of times that you could apply. So would you prefer that you could only, if you had to pick, I either want to apply for bulls or I want to apply for cows, or would they be interested in I could apply up to once each year for a bull tag and up to once each year for a cow tag? The overwhelming majority of respondents at 67% prefer to be able to apply once per permit type per year. Next, we wanted to look at sit-out period. There's 2 different things here that we wanted to look at. The first was the length of the sit-out period. So right now, for antlered elk permits, there's a 10-year sit-out period. Well, do they want a similar sit-out period for cows, or would they possibly want a shorter sit-out period? When we asked that, the response, by less margin than the previous one, they prefer to have a shorter sit-out period for cows, in this case 5 years, compared to 10 for bulls. Also, on the sit-out period, it's kind of, would you like to have the sit-out period apply to any, if you're drawn for either an antlered or an antlerless permit? Do you want the sit-out period to apply for your ability to apply for any elk permit? Or do you want that sit-out period to only apply for the permit type, so bull or cow, that you were drawn for? Very narrowly, public support was most in favor of being that the sit-out period applied specifically to the permit type you're drawn for. So if I was drawn for a bull tag, I could only then not apply for a bull tag for that 10-year period again, but I could continue applying for cows as an example. I will say that as we were, especially in the setup period, factoring in the feedback into our recommendations here shortly, we wanted to maximize opportunity. And so with both of those, by having the shorter sit-out period for cows and the sit-out period only being permit specific, because we are likely to have more cow tags than we are bull, it maximizes folks' opportunity to stay engaged with the elk application, potentially during the permit process. One thing that was brought up by members of the public and our protection staff when the initial antlered elk regulations were put in place, we had a restriction that was added in, so during the 9-day firearm portion of the elk season, those that were using dogs during daylight hours to pursue fur bearers, squirrels, and rabbits would not be permitted in the 3 open counties for elk hunting to do so during that 9-day hunting season. As we've gone through the first hunting seasons, we've recognized that there has not been a conflict issue here, and so at the recommendation of protection, at the request of the public, we are recommending that be dissolved, and so it would allow those that are using dogs during daylight hours to pursue fur bearers, squirrels, and rabbits. They would be able to do so now, moving forward if it's approved by the commission. And those are the 3 CSRs that would be impacted by this change. So as we look here at the summary of the regulation recommendations, if you look there, the first 4 really just deal with the permit and the application side. They're kind of more or less all uniquely tied together. When you look then at below that, the next 3 are really dealing with the sit-out period and how many permits you can be awarded or how you can apply for them in a given year. And the last one, as I just alluded to, is specific to that dog regulation. If this is approved by the commission, it would become effective in February. Our plan moving forward, as I mentioned earlier, we have an aerial elk survey scheduled in December. Based on that, again, we'll run population models. If everything is looking good on that end, likely then at the next commission meeting, or the commission meeting, I think is scheduled for early April of 2025. At the same time, we bring the antlered elk permit quota. If the population is continuing to do well, we could then also bring the first ever antlerless elk permit quota. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions for Aaron? Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I said I was going to ask you a difficult question, but I have to ask you a couple just for curiosity.
All right.
Did I hear you say that the target population was 500 animals?
That's correct.
Okay, that perked my attention. I didn't see it in the presentation. I wasn't aware of what we were looking at in that target. When we look at the modeling of what the population growth would be, we're talking over lunch a little bit. We don't meet those expectations, but I find it interesting of targeting the female population when we haven't reached our desired population level. Could you comment to that or give me a little insight?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're correct. We are not yet at our target population goal. That doesn't, however, mean that if the population is continuing at a stable and steady path going towards that, that we can't sustainably provide limited recreational opportunity on cows. So, count number of cow permits right now, while we're still working towards that goal, would likely be far lower than what they would be at the point where we were actually at our population goal, and then truly trying to use hunting as a regulatory mechanism. Right now, we're looking at just trying to potentially provide a recreational opportunity with very, very little negative impact to population growth rates.
But I know the public comments show that was the 2 areas that the public commented on it. And when you know the target number hasn't been met, then you can say, well, you should support that pretty well. That was the first question. The second question I had was, now, if I understand the reg change, it's removing the restrictions of being able to use dogs during the hunting season. Is that correct? So you could use dogs in those 3 counties now during the hunting season.
Correct, as long as the use of those dogs is to pursue fur bearers, rabbits, and
Sure,
squirrels.
I understand. I guess the question I had on that, because I don't know the regs for Peck Ranch, but I know Peck Ranch is one of the primary areas where people are elk hunting at. Will people be able to run dogs for fur bearers on Peck Ranch, or is that available to them?
So on Peck Ranch, it is now increased in size. I want to say it's roughly 30,000 acres. Roughly 12,000 acres of Peck Ranch is considered a refuge. Inside of that refuge, outside of managed deer and turkey hunting is not permitted in any variety. Outside of the refuge, Peck Ranch is open to statewide regulations. So outside of the refuge, yes, they would be able to do that. Inside, it would still be prohibited, and that hasn't changed because of the refuge. I will note from where hunters tend to pursue elk, while we have had multiple that have been harvested outside of the refuge on Peck Ranch, most of the elk hunting actually occurs significantly away from Peck Ranch.
Does it?
So,
Was there ever a consideration of saying, okay, within Peck Ranch, we're not going to allow dogs? I mean, that maybe compromise. I didn't know what the hunting environment was. I was just kind of curious.
yeah, I would see very minimal impact in a negative way to elk hunters by allowing the use of hunters that wish to use dogs on fur bearers, squirrels, and rabbits at that time. The sheer volume of public land acres in that area between MDC, Forest Service, National Park Service with the Ozark National Scenic Roadways, and then Conservancy, Pioneer Forest property that are all in there. There's an abundance of public land acreage to spread that potential concern out.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
A comment and a question, which was very interesting, exciting, enjoyable to listen to. You mentioned you're going to be doing an aerial survey, I think, in December. Do you have reports of elk roaming beyond the county lines of Carter, Reynolds, and Shannon County?
So every year we end up with, and it does vary a little bit based on the year, somewhere between 30 and 50, as we call them, wandering elk reports, truly from across the state. So they could be in the southwest part of the state. We actually have a fair number of reports that we get in the northwest part of the state. Most of those animals are, of unknown origin. It's highly likely that a great number of them are actually truly wanderers from other neighboring populations. So whether it's in the southwest, they could be coming from Arkansas, or honestly in the northwest, they're probably coming from Kansas or Nebraska. When we look at GPS data from our reintroduced herd, they are homebodies. They don't move as much as you would really think. They stay pretty isolated in that area. And right now, with those three counties, where the heart of the reintroduction was done is at the corner or intersection of those three. And so the bulk of those three counties actually don't have regular elk use in any meaningful manner right now.
Thank you. Just curious.
Thanks again, Aaron. And Lori, you want to wrap this one up?
No questions. Thank you, Aaron.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, I request approval of the 6 proposed rulemakings as presented by Mr. Hildreth, which will establish a framework for the antlerless elk hunting opportunity and update restrictions on the use of dogs.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second. You have a second, right? And now, any discussion other than what we've already discussed? Have any questions or comments, Morgan? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Commissioners, a summary of all citizen comments received since my last regulations report are included in my formal report. Upcoming meetings of the Regulations Committee are scheduled. We had one on August 29th, and then the next one October 31st of 2024 and January 3rd of 2025. Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, unless you or members of the Commission have questions, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Laura. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay. Andrew, Deputy Director of Business and Operations and Chief Financial Officer now, it looks like.
That's correct.
Tell us about our finances.
All right, if we get that on the document. So Commissioners, I'll be
recommend the FY24 year-end financial report and an action item seeking approval for the FY26 executive budget for submission to the Office of Administration. So first, please turn your attention to the FY24 year-end review. As we discuss this information in more detail at the budget workshop this morning, I'll be providing a variance report comparing FY24 to FY23 and FY24 to budget expectations. The report starts with a review of revenues. Total revenues for fiscal year 24 were 7% higher than fiscal year 23 and 2.2% above mid-year expectations. The variance from the previous year was mainly from sales tax revenues and federal reimbursements, with some increases in permit sales. I'll discuss each revenue category individually. The growth in total revenues for FY24 compared to 23 exceeded the 10-year average of 4.6%. Revenues are received from four main sources. In FY24, we received 60% from the conservation sales tax, 15% from permit sales, 18% from federal reimbursements, and 7% from other sources. Conservation sales tax revenues for FY24 were 7.3% higher than fiscal year 23 and 1.4% above mid-year expectations. The growth in FY24 sales tax compared to FY23 exceeded the 10-year average of 4.9%. Permit sales revenues were 4.4% above the previous fiscal year and 1.4% above expectations. The variance in permit sales was above the 10-year average of 3%. The total number of monitoring and fishing permits sold in fiscal year 24 were 65,306 higher than fiscal year 23. Federal reimbursements for fiscal year 24 were 7.3% higher than fiscal year 23 and 9.9% above expectations. The majority of the variances are due to the federal reimbursement for the Forest Legacy Program for a conservation easement. Growth in federal reimbursement from fiscal year 23 to 24 exceeded the 10-year average of 6.4%. Other revenues for fiscal year 24 were 10% above fiscal year 23 and 6.6% below expectations. Other revenues included sales, rentals, interest, donations, settlements, and refunds. Increased interest payments and timber sales are responsible for the increase in other sources of revenues. Growth in FY24, other revenues exceeded the 10-year average of 2.1%. If there aren't any questions on revenue variances, I'll turn our attention to expenditures. Expenditures are categorized into four main sources. In FY24, we expended 47% for personal services, 35% for expense and equipment, and 18% from capital improvements. The 18% of total expenditures for capital improvements included 13% for construction and 5% for land conservation and partnerships. Total operating expenditures for fiscal year 24 increased 11.8% from fiscal year 23 and 3.8% below the mid-year adjusted budget amount. Operating expenditures include personal services, expense and equipment purchases. Growth in FY24 operating expenditures were above the 10-year annual average of 4.8%. Personal service expenditures for FY24 increased 13.2% from fiscal year 23 and 4.4% below the mid-year budget expectations. Growth in FY23 personal services included the compensation plan changes, health insurance increases, and an increase of the motor retirement contribution rate from 26.3% to 27.3%. Changes in FY24 expenditures for personal services were above the 10-year annual average of 4.6%. Expense and equipment Expenditures for fiscal year '24 increased 10% from the previous year and were 3% below expectations. Growth in expenditures from fiscal year '23 for expense and equipment were above the 10-year annual average of 5.2%. Capital expenditures for fiscal year '24 were 68.1% above fiscal year '24 and 5.1% above the mid-year budget expectations. Changes in fiscal year '24 expenditures for capital expenditures were above the 10-year annual average of 22.8%. Capital expenditures included construction projects, repairs and maintenance, and land conservation partnerships. Construction expenditures were 86.7% higher than fiscal year '23 and 4.7% below mid-year expectations. Expenditures for land conservation partnerships were 34.7% higher than fiscal year '23 and 41.1% above expectations. Total expenditures for fiscal year '24 increased 19% from fiscal year '23 and were 2.3% below the mid-year budgeted amount. This concludes my remarks on the fiscal year '24 year-end review, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Andrew? Okay, continue.
The next item is an action item, requesting approval of the submission of the FY 2026 department budget to the Office of Administration by the October 1st deadline. The executive budget was discussed in detail in this morning's budget workshop. You have additional detailed information in your advanced materials. If there are not additional questions, I request approval to send an appropriation budget of $242,035,816 for the fiscal year 2026 operating budget and $61,950,000 in increased appropriations for capital improvements. This action also includes approval to allow other agency appropriation authority to the Conservation Commission Fund of $45,865,133. Other agency appropriations are to the Office of Administration totaling $44,993,417 to cover retirement benefits, payroll, taxes, workers' compensation, legal expense fund, and miscellaneous benefits. $812,201 to the Department of Revenue to collect conservation sales tax revenue and disperse to our accounts, and $59,515 to the State Auditor's Office to pay for our audits.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Any discussion? If I did simple math, I think about $350 million.
That is a total of $349,850,949.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay, Tom, you're next.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to provide the Commission with an update on the Conservation Employees Benefits Plan. This report talks about the financial health of the plan from January through June of 2023 compared to January through June of this year, the first 2 quarters of 2024. As you'll see in the first 2 quarters of 2024, the trust fund experienced an estimated 13% increase in income from approximately $14.5 million to $16.4 million. This is due to Commission-approved premium increases effective January 1 of 2024, and the Commission also approved $2 million infusion to the plan in March of 2024 to ensure a sufficient fund balance after a period of higher than anticipated claims. When comparing the second quarters of 2023 to 2024, and again remembering that we are on a calendar year with our insurance plan as opposed to the July through June fiscal year for the department, when we take a look at those first 2 quarters, Medical claims have increased by about 10%, and prescription claims by about 14%. Rising medical claims, including high-dollar claimants, increased by about $800,000 for the same period of 2023. A single high-dollar claim accounted for approximately $1.1 million in claim spend in the first 2 quarters of 2024. But as the commission will recall, the plan has reinsurance, which is basically insurance for the insurance plan that helps us with those unanticipated very high-dollar claims like that. Stop Loss has provided us with reimbursement for about $671,000 of those claims, again, to ensure that we didn't have a very unpleasant drop in the overall fund as well. While our current fund balance meets the actuary's recommendation of maintaining a minimum balance of about 2.5 times our monthly claim expense and fees, the board continues to work with the plan's consultant, WTW, to monitor claims experience levels and cost savings measures and programs. As the commission is aware, the Board of Trustees voted to include an optional Medicare Advantage plan for our post-65 retirees starting effect on January 1st of 2025. Although consideration of this plan began as a cost-saving measure for the commission and members, the board also chose to offer the plan in response to retiree requests for an Advantage plan. The new Advantage plan allows retirees to remain under our umbrella of coverage in the Conservation Employees Benefits Plan, offers lower premium costs for retirees than the commission, provides for additional coverages such as silver sneakers and vision care, and simplifies the claim process for our retirees. In addition to these services, implementation of this benefit could result in projected savings to the commission of about $1.3 million and up to $2,200 in premiums annually for each retiree that volunteers to be a part of that plan. In addition, the board recently approved and the commission supported a 15.4% overall increase in income to the plan through increased health insurance premiums and rate tier restructuring for the 2025 plan year. Making these changes will better align income to the plan with projected medical and prescriptions claim expense for the plan year. This improves the plan's self-sustainability and enhances flexibility in fluctuating claim environments. That concludes my remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Tom?
I just had one, and I think I know the answer to this, but I just wanted just for clarification. Not the last paragraph, second to last. It says the Medicare Advantage plan allows retirees to remain under the NBC umbrella coverage.
Right.
Now, it's my understanding if they moved to Medicare Advantage, that they were no longer under the NBC umbrella. So, could you clarify that so I
Sure.
understand it a little bit better?
So when the board was considering Medicare Advantage, many other employers, for instance, will say there's a set dollar amount, ask retirees to go out on the open market and find a plan on their own. It was important to us to ensure our retirees who chose to participate in this continue to get customer service support through our benefits team. So Sue and her team to help them with answering questions, to help them with the overall plan itself.
So they'll still have access to that?
They will. Now, again, to your point, it is a fully insured plan. So the benefits processing and whatnot will be done by that vendor. I'm not trying to get way down in the weeds here, but we will be able to help them continue to act as an advocate for those types of claims, situations, coverage questions, and things that they have.
So, I mean, as we're presenting this to the retirees, I mean, if you just read one part of it that says it's going to be a 50% savings in your premium, obviously,
Right.
I'm going to jump on that.
Yes.
But making sure that they fully understand the implications of making that decision.
Correct.
We're going to be very thorough and educating the retirees on that.
We are, and I'm glad you asked that question. We're going to 16 different locations for in-person meetings coming up here. So all over the state, we're going to have both an active employee meeting in the morning and then a retiree meeting in the afternoon. And then the pioneers will get together in September, which is kind of the gathering of our retiree group. Well, Sue and her team will be doing a presentation there as well. So there's a lot of questions. They'll be able to reach out directly to the new vendor with their questions. Folks want to know about prescription coverages and whether or not the doctor they're visiting and whatnot is still in network, so they'll be available to help answer those questions too.
And I know you're still working through some of that. You know, just kind of thinking out loud, that it might be prudent to have them sign some type of statement that acknowledges that they know they can't come back.
Yeah.
So you've got something in their file that documents that.
Right, Commissioner.
Because it is a big step.
It is. It is. It definitely is a big step, and you're absolutely right. That's what we want to do between the documents we're providing in writing, between these in-person visits. We want to make sure they absolutely understand that should they choose to go that route, at this point, they will not be allowed back. So I really
I just don't want to have a disgruntled retiree that's
Yes, sir.
certainly their life to have it. It's
Understood.
just a concern.
Yep, no, understood.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Go ahead, Rick.
Quick follow-up.
Sure.
Steve just said forever. I was under the impression that it left out, to go to the other plan, that during the following benefits, a year later election, opportunity, they could elect back into the NPC plan. But I know there was some back and forth on this.
So the board voted for that not to happen. Should a retiree, a post-65 retiree choose to take the Advantage plan, they would not be allowed under open enrollment of the following year to come back to our traditional plan.
No,
Correct.
that's what I hear, right?
Yep.
I think there was some ambiguity about that, at least some other talk about that, so again, all for a reason to make sure
Yep.
retirees are fully informed.
Understood.
Okay. Just a question, you're going out, you said 16 locations, but you're talking in different regions throughout the state.
Yes.
And I would guess that there again, throughout the state, we have several different healthcare providers that we're going to be working with.
In terms of the doctors and pharmacies.
Yes, doctors,
Yes.
hospitals primarily.
Yep.
So I mean, you may be dealing with, Barnes in St. Louis, for example, or some other carrier in this part of the state, for example.
Right.
So has there been any conversations with any of these organizations at all, or is that too premature to ask that question?
So in terms of inclusion in the network, is that what you're asking?
No, just the fact that you're going to be having ABC employees on the Medicare Advantage.
No.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, we have not.
And then, of course, this doesn't go live until 2025, right?
Correct. So yeah, it'll be effective January 1st. Open enrollment for us runs October 1 through October 31st.
Right, that's 21. So live 2025. So here we are, 2026. Do we take a second look at any of this stuff, or?
Absolutely. We're all going to be watching.
That's kind of where I'm going.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to see how many folks enroll. We're going to see how satisfied they are with products. And
That's it, okay. Just kind of testing the market and see if it's okay. Well, I think it'll go well. All right, that's our discussion part of it, and I don't think there's any action required here at this point.
There is not.
So we're going to take a short break, and then we'll follow this up with infrastructure management.
you could hear. Now we'll let Jacob make some comments.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Director Summers. I have your next agenda item. It is a summary of construction activities in fiscal year 24 on major construction projects, as well as at the end of my presentation, I will transition into the fiscal year 25 status report for major construction projects. So fiscal year 24 was a very good year for construction. Total expenditures were nearly $40 million. Several major construction projects started work. In fiscal year 24, those include the Springfield Conservation Nature Center roof replacement, Shepherd Hills Fish Hatchery Intermediate Raceways replacement, the Little River main entrance drainage ditch crossing, and the Venice Spring Fish Hatchery renovation. At the end of the fiscal year, there were nearly $84 million in active construction contracts. A lot of work going on all across the state. And this is just a summary of the materials that were shared with you in advance. So I'd like to highlight a few graphs. First one shows in the blue color the fiscal year 24 construction expenditures compared to the orange colors that are average of the 5 prior fiscal years. So the line denotes the accumulating percent expended of the total construction budget through the year. In each individual month, the bars show the percent of the construction budget expended in that particular month. So this, we use this graph to communicate with the director's office to show progress through the year and to show us how the expenditure of construction dollars isn't linear through the year. It ebbs and flows with the seasons. You can see if you normalize the prior 5 years as 100% of their expenditures, you can see in the blue line how we performed compared to the average. So if you summarize that a different way in the next graph, the far right in the light blue color, that's again the nearly 96% of the construction budget that was expended, compared to the orange color, which is the prior 5-year average, and the dark blue is each individual 5 years prior.
So Jacob, got a question, because you're tracking change orders, as you indicated here in
Yes.
that chart. And a lot of times when you bring a contract to us, you also get authorization as a contingency.
Correct.
And sometimes it might be 5%, sometimes it might be 10%, or it could be some other number. It just depends on what the scope and the breadth of that project is. So are we keeping the total cost within the contingencies?
Yes. There are a few instances in the past, you recall, where I had to come back to the commission to request an increase in that contingency. Fountain Grove Pump Station is one example. However, if the commission authorizes a contingency of 5%, then the team I work with, we manage within that contingency. And if you look in the last graph that I displayed here on screen, if you look at fiscal year 24, we only had a net of 100.14% on our construction contracts. So net change orders of 0.14% increase over the contracts that were substantially complete in fiscal year 24.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So now I'd like to highlight some of the projects that were completed in fiscal year 24. First one is the IT building exterior renovation at the commission headquarters. You'll see in the photograph, if you look around the plumbing vents, that we got every single ounce of life out of that asphalt shingle roof that we could. This is near the start of construction. Next, you see the demolition work in progress. All the siding was removed, all the windows, the roof was removed as well. This work also included significant improvements to the electrical service to the building. Of course, it's hard to have IT services without electricity, so it was very important while we were working on the exterior renovation to also improve the electrical service, make sure it's code compliant and safe. This photograph is near the end of the project. You can see the windows being installed. You see the new siding in place, and you also see the metal roof that is very light color to help reflect heat in the summer. So that project is substantially complete. Next is the Howell Island Causeway removal. This was a project to remove that concrete apron that you see on top of the riprap structure. This is on the Centaur Chute in the Missouri River, just across from Welcome Spring Conservation Area. NDC actually installed the concrete apron on top of a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers water control structure in the 1980s. And over time, the performance of that concrete apron decayed, and so it was decided to remove that concrete apron. Here you see the contractor starting their work at the island side of that causeway. After they removed the concrete, then they came back in and placed riprap on top of that core structure to the Corps' requirements. Here you see the completed work. The contractor completed it very quickly, and the Corps has accepted that work. And so the Corps is now fully responsible again for that structure. Grand Pass, there was a wetland pump replacement. This is a project that we bid out a materials contract and then had MDC staff install the pump. Just for context here, this was a very specialized pump for that location. If you look at the information tab on the right, you see that it was manufactured in Japan. It weighed over 1,000 pounds, had a 480 volt. It's not the type of pump you just go to your big box convenience store and buy. It is a very specialized equipment that we install in our wetland pump stations across the state. Next is the Rural Forest Fire Equipment Center building renovation. Much like the IT exterior renovation project, we went through and did a complete renovation of the exterior of the building. So replacing all the siding, windows, doors, roof. Did some interior work. This is the shop bays where they work on equipment. You can see progress pictures here. Making significant improvements for code compliance. Also making improvements to electrical systems, HVAC systems. And one of the shop bays were finished out into a meeting room so that the staff can meet with the partners that we provide equipment to throughout the year from this facility. And here you can see the finished product. Jerome, there was an access, motorboat access that we replaced. This is courtesy of Google Maps. You can see the location and the rock tower that's on the right. That was a prominent feature that was left after MoDOT realigned their road. So the contractor actually had to bring a crane in and get their rock removal equipment up on that rock tower. Safety was paramount in that rock removal exercise. You can see the debris spread everywhere. You can see in the background on the other side of the Gasconade River, there's traffic that's halted there for their safety. And so the contractor worked bit by bit to take down this rock tower. That material was then used as fill for the parking lot and the boat ramp. Here you see the contractor actually placing that fill out in the river to be the base for the concrete slab that goes out in the river. Here you can see that concrete slab being pushed into the river on top of the rock fill. It's a very delicate operation. It takes a lot of skill to do that. The contractor did it very well. Happy day. Many years in the works, but we got to have a ribbon cutting. Commissioner Harrison, you were there with a big smile. And this was the first customer to use that boat ramp. I think they had pretty much chased us off the boat right after the ribbon cutting, if I remember. But they're very excited to get on the river. So that is, that new location is really being enjoyed by the public. So that concludes the highlights of the projects that were completed in fiscal year 24. If there are any questions about those projects, I'd be happy to advance to the fiscal year 25 construction status report. Proceed.
Yeah, please proceed.
Okay. All right. So this is a new report. All the projects that were completed in fiscal year 24 have been removed. All the new projects that we anticipate spending dollars on in fiscal year 25 have been added to the report. Tried to keep most of the projects that are ongoing in generally the same location just to help with continuity. And schedules have been updated, budget figures have been updated. And I will start on the first page under maintenance repairs category on line 5 at the Springfield Conservation Nature Center. That roof replacement project, contractor is making good progress, and as of the date of this report on the 19th of August, contractor is 30% complete. At Chesapeake Fish Hatchery, that hatchery building roof replacement project, notice to proceed was issued on July 15th. Contractor is just now getting mobilized on site and working through the demolition process. On lines 8 and 9 at Bush Memorial Conservation Area, there's 2 projects there that we did in combination for the regional office. There were exterior renovation projects. Construction is just underway now. Contractor is starting the demolition work as we speak. And then on line 15 at the Conservation Commission headquarters campus, the Grunge Nature Center exterior renovation notice to proceed was issued late August. So that contractor is just now getting ready to get started on their demolition work. Under the rehabilitations category, on line 17 at Montauk Fish Hatchery, the recirculation system control valve replacement, that construction is complete already. Contractor got in there and got it taken care of very quickly. Very happy with that. On line 18 at Shepherd Hills Fish Hatchery, the intermediate raceways replacement project, as the date of this report, was 95% complete. But you'll remember from the tour yesterday that we have possession of those and they are in use. So the contractor has completed that work. They're just working through a few punch list items at this time. On line 19 at Eagle Bluffs Conservation Area, the pump station flood repairs project, we have started advertisement for that bidding opportunity with bids scheduled to be opened on September 12th. On line 21 at 10 Mile Pond Conservation Area, the well improvements phase 1 project is 50% complete. Contractors making good progress there. Lines 22 and 23 at Shell Osage Conservation Area, the lake renovation and wetland renovation projects are being bid in combination. We have started that advertisement process, and we will open bids on September 26th. So that bid opportunity and the Eagle Bluffs bid opportunity, we anticipate bringing bids to the October commission meeting.
Is those both being designed by DU?
Yes. DU is through agreement. They're bidding, or they're designing it, and then they also hired a consultant, MSI, out of Illinois, to help supplement their design services.
So collectively, those are 2 projects together, you're probably pushing $25 million, more or less.
Yes. It's, I anticipate coming to the October commission meeting with bid award recommendations, somewhere between $25 and $30 million.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Line 24, Conservation Commission headquarters, the transformer replacement and entrance road renovation project. Notice to proceed was issued August 1st, and work is well underway. Contractors making good progress there. On the second page of the report, under the capital improvements category, line 1 in Fountain Grove Conservation Area, that new pump station construction is complete. Training has been completed, and I believe that there is a ribbon cutting ceremony planned in October that the commission will have an opportunity to participate in. On line 2 at Little River Conservation Area, the main entrance drainage ditch crossing project is 90% complete. And line 2 at the Gorman Discovery Center, the entrance canopy replacement is 5% complete as of the date of this report. Cheverly Hills Fish Hatchery, the Conservation Center replacement, as you recall from Victoria yesterday, construction is complete. Contractors working through a few punch list items, access control system, and staff are very eager to move in. On line 6 at Shell Osage Conservation Area, the new pump station, 95% complete. They're working through the shakedown on new pumps. That should be substantially complete very soon. Line 7, Columbia Bottom Conservation Area, the entrance road relocation project. The contractor is just getting started there. They're starting to strip topsoil and do some clearing. Line 18 at J. Thad Ray Memorial Wildlife Area, the shop addition project. Notice to proceed as of the date of this report hadn't yet been issued. The contractor, that has since happened since August 19th. The contractor is on site and just starting to get mobilized. And then on line 19 at Ted Shanks Conservation Area, hazardous material storage building project, notice to proceed has not yet been issued. So that concludes all the remarks on the new construction status report. If you have to answer any questions before I go to the last slide.
Just a question, because we were talking about the budget earlier. House Bill 18 and House Bill 19 is how we present the capital budget or the infrastructure budget. And that had two different descriptions, if I remember right.
So 18 is generally maintenance and repair.
Okay.
And rehabilitation.
Okay.
And 19 is generally, I would say, new construction for many purposes.
Okay. So if I just look at Jacob's report, if I took, these are all $100,000 plus, all these projects are. So maintenance, repair, and rehabilitation, and I'm looking at this chart, that's going to be 18. And then you go to capital improvements. Is that 19 then? Is that kind of how that works?
Well, generally, but remember, we have the reappropriations bill, so that's House Bill 17.
Okay.
So we don't have to ask for new appropriation.
Right.
If we have a 5-year, let's say, benefits,
Mhm.
3 years, whatever, 5 years, let's say. What we spend in the first year gets deducted from House Bill 19, and then everything else goes in House Bill 17. And that stays in that fund, we spend out of that fund until it's exhausted. So, when we talked this morning and this afternoon about what we put in the budget for 26, that doesn't include the reappropriation we already have in, let's say, 17, and there are also reappropriations in 18.
Okay. Well, I'm just thinking terminology, what I'm thinking at this point.
Okay.
I mean, just at the standpoint of, you've kind of answered, major repair. There's three, he's working off 3 categories.
Yeah.
And then the budget kind of has 2 different titles associated with it. I mean, I realize it's a rollback in the prior years. I'm just trying to get the terminology down, that's all. It's like what you call it, basically, is what it is. I mean, in the big picture, it's all about fixing stuff, right? I mean, isn't that kind of the big story here? Or building things, I guess, would be another way to describe it. So, okay. Just understand the terminology. Okay. All right. Thank you. You're welcome. We had next, more slides? Go ahead. Mark.
Just one question, regarding our hatchery residences. It looks like we are gonna start construction on 2 of those projects this month. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. We have been working closely with the Regional Resource Management Branch and their regional construction and maintenance crews to plan out and schedule that work. So the first one that's going to get started is at Honeywell Fish Hatchery, and then the second one is Bennett Spring Fish Hatchery.
And then do we have estimated project start dates for the remaining residences?
We do not yet. Again, those are all being built by MDC staff. So
Correct.
we're going to get the first ones started, and then depending on how that goes and the weather this fall will dictate when we start the next ones.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, last slide is the infrastructure asset management dashboard. Just one thing I'd like to highlight here in the middle is the panel board and the load centers. This is tracking all those assets throughout the system. And currently there are 36% of those assets that are beyond their expected life. If we were to calculate the replacement cost for all of those, it would be over $6 million. If we were to do nothing over the next 5 years, that would increase to 43% of those assets being past their extended life with a replacement cost of over $7 million. Of course, we don't do nothing. We work all the projects that I shared with you today. Whenever they involve electrical components, we're always looking to improve code compliance and replace those out-of-date assets. And so we will continue to work, and over time, you will see that metric improve. That concludes my remarks. I'd be happy to answer any other questions from the commission.
Thank you, Jacob. Good. Okay, I think we're coming up on IT, Todd Lee, IT Security and Technology, Section Chief. Let's talk about IT and security.
Sounds good.
All right,
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Director Summers, Deputies. I appreciate your time today as I share our FY24 end-of-year report for the IT branch. My presentation will just be highlights from the annual report that's in your meeting materials. What I would like to share with you today is 4 of our completed projects, 2 big projects for this year, and then some of our maintenance and cybersecurity accomplishments. First, this chart shows our completed projects by fiscal year. As you can see, IT's completed projects has continued to climb each year. For the last 4 years, we've averaged a 13% increase year over year. The first project I'd like to highlight for you is, this was a completed project that was the first phase of the Fisheries Information Network System, or FINS. This is a specialized data tracking and analysis system that informs regulations and management by tracking and analyzing fish sampling data. This project researched and selected an existing commercial system. This coming year, we'll be working with the company to implement the system and new mobile devices for the data collection. This new solution is used by other government resource agencies, including the Iowa DNR and the U.S. Forest Service. Since we've not gotten to the implementation yet, what you see here is just some general screenshots from the company. We also completed some improvements to the agency's CWD collector app for recording samples taken at our statewide sampling stations. This is an iPhone app that runs on around 515 iPhones that we deploy statewide by our mobile device team each year. You can see a couple of the screenshots here in the app. One is for collecting the hunter information, and another that records the location information. When we originally deployed this mobile app, it replaced the use and the transportation of paper forms that recorded the sample details. This greatly reduced the time it took to provide sample results to the public. We also completed a new evidence tracking system for Protection Branch. We were able to locate and purchase a commercially available system that met our needs. And the system replaced the manual paper process while improving the tracking of evidence and accountability for our conservation agents statewide. The final completed project I'd like to share is our project to replace the large screens at all of our nature centers and our auditorium at headquarters. The picture on the left shows one of the old screens that was replaced. I'm sure you recognize this from our meetings in Jefferson City. Yeah. As you can see, it used 9 tile 55-inch screens to give us a 165-inch screen, but it had the noticeable lines right there in the image. Well, the new one gives us a 108-inch screen without the lines, and it was actually at a lower cost. So I think you've seen that one that we did at HQ.
Yeah. There's one right over there.
Yep, the one on the right. Looks a lot better. Now I'd like to share 2 projects that we'll be completing this fiscal year. The first one is an expansion of our digital waterfowl draw system. Our plan is this will be expanded to all of our intensively managed waterfowl areas by this time next year. This system consists of a check-in screen, check-out screen, and then displays to show the draw results, as you can see here. We'll also be leveraging Starlink connectivity in many of these locations, which has been a real challenge up to now in many of these remote areas. The second project I'd like to highlight for this fiscal year is a scheduled replacement of all of our office telephone systems. This new system is internet-based and better supports our distributed employees and their responsiveness to public calls. What's displayed here are 2 screens from the laptop software and then 1 screen from the iPhone app, which these allow our employees to use their NBC phone extension and voicemail from mobile locations. The last area I'd like to cover is our ongoing maintenance and operations work. Much of our staff time is spent maintaining the diverse systems and equipment that we already have. This takes the form of service requests from agency employees that IT resolves, purchase requests for technology, equipment replacements and disposals, and supporting our GIS and our NBC-built applications. As you would imagine, with technology being so prevalent in agency operations, we play a big role in CWD sampling and CWD winter operations. This includes setting up and deploying those 500 some iPhones that I mentioned earlier, supporting our permits call center, facilitating staff signups for filling sampling station staff positions, making sure sampling technology operations are running smoothly on opening weekend, and serving on incident command teams and shooting teams. The last operations subject I'd like to share is regarding some of our cybersecurity improvements. Technologically, the world is continuing to evolve. Not that long ago, most employees came into an office to access their systems, equipment, and data, or they connected to in-office systems over a secure connection. This was much like a castle surrounded by a strong wall and moat using perimeter defenses. If you were on the inside, you were by default trusted. Now, employees are working from everywhere. The pandemic only accelerated this. As I'm sure you know or have experienced yourselves, we're working from home, coffee shops, even mobile devices from the car or maybe a family event. Once you get outside of your fortress, how do you sufficiently protect everything? You can no longer grant trust just based on location. The principles of protecting the new way of working are called zero trust. No longer can your location be the basis for security. Now the basis is reduced to your identity. By this I mean it comes down to things like your user login, things like multi-factor authentication, and looking at which systems are being accessed and when must be used instead. The guiding principle of zero trust is to no longer assume that someone can have implicit trust, but instead must repeatedly demonstrate that they should be accessing something and is not acting in a suspicious manner. We've completed a number of improvements already in implementing a zero trust strategy, and we'll be continuing to make improvements this year and into the future. I'd like to thank the Commission and Administration for your continued support and investment in our IT team and operations. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, questions?
In here? Does it work? Try again? No? Okay. First off, I'd like to compliment on how well you run your program. You know, it's interesting. It's different things in part. It just seems like we don't ever talk about you. You're just seeing
We're behind the
it's
scenes.
just a good thing. Yeah. One of the things that I noticed in some of the comments, I think you say 40% of your projects are outsourced by outside consultants. Is that correct, or did I read that correctly?
That to some degree involve consultants, that's correct.
And so, how do you implement that? Do you have to go through a bid process like, Jacob has to do with on some of the construction projects? And how do you go about selecting those people and make sure they're providing the services you're looking for?
Sure, good question. It's evolved over the years. Where the state has ended up that we, of course, participate on is a consulting services contract. And so it's got multiple approved vendors on that. And so we design a PAQ document that's got certain criteria and deliverables that we have to build into that, deadlines, and we distribute that to those vendors. And any vendors from that qualified vendor list on contract can submit proposals to meet that, and then we can select end costs, and then we can select from those vendors on contract. for whichever one best meets our needs.
So when you're doing those, I mean, typically, and you're soliciting a vendor, or you're in a bid process, will you get just one, or will you get multiple, or what's the participation in that?
It really comes down to the type of technology used. Some of those vendors can either not respond, and many of them can, depending on what it is, or they can go with a subcontractor, which we can approve, and so they can bring in some other resources that maybe they don't have on their specific staff. So I think we at least get a few generally. It just kind of depends on the technology.
It's just interesting, you know, when we look at our construction, we're challenged sometimes to get more than one. And just wondered if there's something different in your industry as opposed to construction, or do you have any comments or thoughts on
I think with it being technology and these vendors, most of them are Missouri-based, but they can bring in resources from throughout the United States. So there's a little bit more flexibility there to bring in resources. And we tend to stick with more established technologies. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. And so there are more consulting resources out there when you're sticking to the big vendors like Microsoft or Cisco.
Thanks, Tom. You really enjoyed the presentation. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Kind of from a project's perspective, did you have some questions, Lance? I'll come back after you, Rich. Go first.
First of all, what you do is, like I said, they already, it's critical to the agency, the touching the public classes, the virtual classes, just everything. How many people, Todd, are on your team roughly, and how do you retain them and find them? This maybe is a question for Todd, but finding IT professionals like so many other industries is a challenge.
I think when we're fully staffed, the count is 61, and we're almost fully staffed at the moment. As far as retaining, we really focus on training and professional development, as well as cross-training. So when they come in, maybe if they come in at an earlier position, we spend a lot of time on their individual plan for progression. We support training, certifications, all of that professional development. And, I think a lot of the IT employees that come to the department are here for the mission as well. I've been here 29 years. A lot of the staff have been here multiple years. So there's really not a lot of turnover. The department treats us all very well and invests in us as a team. So, that really helps out.
That's great. Thank you. Congratulations on that culture.
So as a project, just trying to understand, is a software upgrade project something of that nature?
As far as what we call a project and what you see in those numbers is more of what is a larger effort that comes to us by one of a couple of meetings. So we have a steering committee where those projects are sent to us as a request, and we assess it for resources and funding that's going to be required to do that. That's similar in some ways to what Jacob does. We assess what that project's going to entail, and then put a budget request behind it, prioritize those, and then the approved list moves forward. Smaller things like software upgrades don't necessarily qualify, like if we're doing monthly patches, various security updates, those would not be a project.
So, Laura says I need something, some app or some process or procedure, then she'd come to you and say, I need some help on this or something. Is that kind of how that works?
Yes, she would file a request through that project request. We'd assess the funding and whatever resources, and then.
Or like you give example, putting up better video screens, for example. I mean, that's something that's not very, I guess that can become a project too, I guess.
It could be. That one in particular was not. It was fairly small and minimal effort. We did use some consulting expertise to help us with the switch between the screens. So that one in particular did not qualify as a project, but it could have.
But all these purchases, all the equipment you mentioned, everything, that's all procured, right? So there's a process of doing all that. So, okay.
Yes, we've got a purchase request system, and there are multiple state contracts that we go through in order to, they're managed by the Office of Administration to do things like our PC replacements or networking replacements.
So I guess when you let all together, it seems like a lot more than 48. You're doing something all the time. So
Oh, yeah. A lot of the just regular maintenance things that we have on the later slide is not part of the earlier count.
Because you're doing, it's a lot of just ongoing service kind of situations.
Yeah, if we're replacing laptops, that's not.
Now, you say IT, security, and technology, so it's information technology, and then security now, is that like a security camera? Does that fall in that category? Is that kind of where security comes in here? Or is it cybersecurity?
It's cybersecurity.
Okay.
Yeah, the physical security, I mean, we work with, but not as much as more the cybersecurity. So the policies and procedures and technologies to secure our digital assets.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mark, you have any questions for Todd?
Great report, Todd. I joke, you guys do the pH fishing side of the agency work, so thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. So, okay, Mr. Director, are we about ready to call this a wrap?
Right.